Shalom, shalom, Israel.
Shalom, Israel.
Hey, we're back. We're going to do another video. It's in reference to the walls of Jericho, Joshua chapter 6. It's been said that the account of Jericho took place on the seventh day, which is the Sabbath. And we're going to go into scripture and just give some understanding as far as the account of Jericho, the walls of Jericho. And also, we're going to show that the account of Jericho also further proves the calendar of the Most High, Genesis 1, verse 14. So we're going to go into scripture. We're going to get some scriptures on it. We're going to go precept upon precept, and we're just going to go through and just show that the calendar of the Most High is all throughout the scriptures. If you know what you're looking at, if you know what you're reading, and if you have the understanding of it. So we're just going to just expound on it and just give a little bit more understanding. We're going to start off with our foundational scripture, as always. 1 Thessalonians 5:21. We're going to start there. So go ahead, pick it up.
First Thessalonians 5:21, and it reads, "Prove all things, hold fast that which is good."
So we're commanded to prove all things, hold fast that which is good. So we're going to go into scripture. We're going to do just that. We're going to prove all things. We're going to hold fast that which is good. And like I said, we're going to just give a breakdown of Joshua chapter 6. And we'll start there, Joshua chapter 6, and we'll start at the top.
Joshua chapter 6, verse 1, and it reads, "Now Jericho was straitly shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out, and none came in. And Yahuah said unto Joshua, See, I have given into thine hand Jericho, and the king thereof, and the mighty men of valor." Verse 3, "And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days."
So this is he's giving instructions here, right? So he says, verse 3 says, "And he shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go around the city, go around about the city once. Thus shalt thou do in 6 days." So he's telling them to go around the city once a day for 6 days, right? So let me get a quick definition on instructions so we kind of put that in perspective as far as instruction is concerned. Because he said to go around the city once a day for 6 days, right? You see that up?
Yes.
Go ahead, read that for me, please.
Instruction, definition, a outline or manual of technical procedure, a direction calling for compliance, usually used in plural, a code that tells a computer to perform a particular operation, the action, practice, or profession of teaching.
So and it says instruction, it says directions right here, right? And I like this right here. It says precept. Ironically, it says precept, right? So we're going to go through the scriptures and we're going to show what these directions and what these instructions are, and we're going to get the understanding by way of the precept, right? So Psalms 119, 104 says, "Through thy precept we get understanding, therefore we hate every false way." So we're going to go into the precepts and we're going to show that, right? So pick it up. Well, let me get that verse 3 again. It says, "And he shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do for 6 days." So he's going to go around the city once a day for 6 days, right? Pick it up at verse 4 and 5. Huh?
Joshua chapter 6, verse 4, and it reads, "And 7 priests shall bear before the ark 7 trumpets of ram's horns, and the 7th day ye shall compass the city 7 times, and the priest shall blow with the trumpets." Verse 5, "And it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast with the ram's horn, and when ye hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city shall fall down flat, and the people shall ascend up every man straight before him."
So he's giving further instructions here. It says, It said in verse 3 to go around the city once a day for 6 days. Now, verse 4 picks it up and says, on the seventh day, it says, go around the city 7 times, right? And it says, and on the 7th time, they shall blow the trumpet. And then it says in verse 5, it says, it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the walls of the city shall fall down flat. Right? So that's the instructions for the 7th day, right? Pick it up at verse 6, huh?
Joshua 6, verse 6. And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said unto them, take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of Yahuah.
Go ahead.
And he said to the people, pass on and compass the city, and let him that is on pass on before the ark of Yahuah. Verse 8, and it came to pass when Joshua had spoken unto the people that the 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns passed on before the Yahuah and blew with the trumpet of, and the ark of the covenant of Yahuah followed them. Verse 9, and the armed men went before the trumpets that blew with the trumpets, and the reward and the rearward came after the ark, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I bid you shout. Then shall ye shout.
So right here, he's giving them further instructions, right? So they're moving out to go do what they're supposed to do. So verse 10 says, and Joshua had commanded the people, saying, ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day that I bid you to shout, right? So according to verse 5, he says of this, verse 4 and verse 5, he says, on the 7th day, the priest shall bear before you the ark of the ark 7 trumpets and a ram's horn, and on the 7th day they shall compass the city 7 times. And it says in verse 5, and it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, and when they hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the walls of the city shall fall down. So he's telling them here in verse 10, he said, don't make a noise, don't make any shouting until that day, meaning the 7th day, right? Go ahead, pick it up at verse 11, huh?
Joshua 6, verse 11, and it reads, so the ark of Yahuah compassed the city, going about it once, and they came into the camp and lodged in the camp. Verse 12, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of Yahuah. And the 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of Yahuah went on continually and blew with the trumpets. And the
right here, he's telling us in verse 12, he said, and Joshua rose up early in the morning. So right here, when it says early in the morning, this constitutes the starting point of the very next day, because every biblical day starts at the rising of the sun, right? So let me pull this and show this real quick. Because he said the rising of the sun, right? So let me get this right here. You see that?
Yeah. I got the same thing pulled up. I got the same thing pulled up already too.
So Joshua 6, verse 12, right? So read that again from y'all.
Joshua chapter 6, verse 12, and it reads, and Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priest took up the ark of Yahuah.
So like I said, when it says he rose up early in the morning, when it says this constitutes the starting point of the very next day, right? And we'll get that in the Strong's Concordance right here too. So this is the Strong's Concordance right there. Can you read that from y'all?
This is the Strong's H1242. And it is morning, break of day, morning, end of night, coming of daylight, coming of sunrise, beginning of a day, bright joy after night of distress, morrow, next day, next morning.
So when he says right there that verse 12 again,
And Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priest took up the ark of Yahuah.
So when he says right here, and it says he rose up early in the morning, like I said, this constitutes the starting point of the very next day. And so we'll read further, but also what I'm saying too is that from verse 1 to 11, we would have to conclude that this would be the first day of the month, which would be New Moon Day. And we'll prove that. Read, go ahead and pick it up at verse 13 up.
Verse 13, Joshua 6, verse 13, and it reads, And 7 priests bearing 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of Yahuah went on continually and blew with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the rearward came after the ark of Yahuah, the priests going on and blowing with the trumpets. Verse 14, And the second day they compassed the city once, and they returned into the camp. So they did 6 days.
Right here, so verse 14 says, and the second day they compassed the city once and returned unto the camp, and so they did this for 6 days. Because at the top of the chapter, verse 3, it says, And ye shall compass the city, all you men of war, and you shall go around about the city once, thus shalt thou do for 6 days, right? So when verse 12 says, and Joshua rose up early in the morning, then we just showed Strong's Concordance that this constitutes the starting point of a new day. So every biblical day starts at the rising of the sun. This is just proving that again. So the other point is, we would have to also conclude is that this is verse 12 where it's saying the rising of the sun. So we would have to conclude that from verse 1 to verse 11 would have to be talking about the first day of the month, which would numerically be New Moon Day. This is what this is saying, right? So when verse 14 says, and then the second day they compassed the city once, and they returned to the camp, and they did this for 6 days, right? Pick it up at verse 15, huh?
Joshua 6, verse 15, and it reads, And it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times.
So right here in this verse, it says, and they compassed the city on the 7th day. And they also equating the 7th day that it says they rose up early about the dawning of the day, right? About the dawning of the day. So let's show that too. Because like I said, every day starts at the rising of the sun at dawn, right? So let's get that and see if we can get this definition as well. Go ahead and read that for me, y'all.
Dawn, the first appearance of light in the morning, followed by sunrise.
Followed by sunrise. Go ahead.
Says, followed by sunrise, dancing to dawn, at the crack of dawn, beginning the dawn of a space age. Or
the beginning. So every biblical day starts at the rising of the sun. Just like it said in verse 12, when Joshua rose up early in the morning, being the starting point of a day. So this is just another verse that's reiterating that the biblical day starts at the rising of the sun, right? So verse 15 again says, and it came to pass on the 7th day that they rose up early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city about in the same manner 7 times. Only on that day, meaning the 7th day, they compassed it 7 times, right? So it's just like it says over in verse 5, it says that on the 7th day, it says that it shall come to pass that when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, and when they hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the walls of Jericho shall fall, right? Pick it up at verse 16, huh?
Joshua chapter 6, verse 16, and it reads, And it came to pass at the 7th time when the priest blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for Yahuah hath given you the city.
And so he said he had given them the city, right? So he told them in verse 10, pick it up at verse 10 again, huh?
Joshua chapter 6, verse 10, and it reads, And Joshua had commanded the people, saying, Ye shall not shout, nor make any noise with your voice, neither shall any word proceed out of your mouth until the day I bid you shout. then shall ye shout.
Until the day he bid them to shout. So he bid them to shout on the seventh day when they compassed the city round about 7 times, and they blew the trumpet and they shouted, right? So drop down to verse 20, huh?
Joshua chapter 6, verse 20, and it reads, So the people shouted when the priest blew with the trumpets, and it came to pass when the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat, so that the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city.
Go ahead.
Verse 21, and they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, and ox and sheep and ass, with the edge of the sword.
So like I said from the beginning, we're going to show, like I said, this is the account of the walls of Jericho. But like I said, it further proves the calendar of the Most High, Genesis 1 verse 14, right? Let's get that real quick. Read Genesis 1:14, right? Because this is the only calendar of the Most High. And like I said, if you know what you're looking at during Scripture, you'll be able to associate the calendar, the true and only calendar of the Most High, all throughout Scripture, all throughout the different accounts in the Bible, where it continually shows that. Just like when we showed they rose up early in the morning, or it says they rose up early at the dawning of the day. When we see these things in the text, we understand that every biblical day starts at the dawning of at the rising of the sun, or dawn, right? The first light. So again, when you understand the calendar of the Most High, you'll be able to go into Scripture and discern what it's saying. So we're going to read what the calendar is, and we're going to show exactly what this calendar is concerning the walls of Jericho. Go ahead, pick that up.
Genesis chapter 1, verse 14, and it reads, And Yahuah said, Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
Or let it be for signs, for seasons, for days, and for years, right? Go ahead and grab Ezekiel 46 and verse 1, so we can get to 3. That's the calendar of the Most High, which is a lunisolar calendar. But now we're going to show you the 3 types of days on the calendar of the Most High. And then we're going to go back to Joshua, to the walls of Jericho, and show you the calendar right here in this text.
Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1, and it reads, Thus saith Yahuah Elohim, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be opened, and in the day of the new moon it shall be opened.
So the calendar of the Most High is Genesis 1, verse 14, and there's 3 types of days on the calendar of the Most High. There's new moon day being biblically the first day of the month, followed by 6 work days and your weekly Sabbaths, right? So let me show this real quick. So what we just read was Ezekiel 46, verse 1. And so it shows here, new moon day, which is the first day of the month, is followed by 6 work days and then your weekly Sabbaths, right? So that's what that's showing right there. So when it comes to the walls of Jericho, let me pull this up and show that as well. So like I said, we're going back to the account of the walls of Jericho. Everything from verse 11, from verse 1 to verse 11 would be new moon day. Because again, verse 12 says, and Joshua rose up early in the morning being constituting the starting point of the new day. Verse 14 says, and the second day they compassed the city once and returned unto the camp, and they did so for 6 days. So you would have to conclude that anything prior to that verse would have to be new moon day, being the first day of the month, right? So as we go into this, let me show this here. So new moon day, which would be the first day of the month, right? So he said on that day, pick that back up in verse 3,
Joshua chapter 6, verse 3, and it reads, And ye shall compass the city, all ye men of war, and go round about the city once. Thus shalt thou do 6 days.
So this first day he's talking about is new moon day, right? So he says, go about the city 6 days. So this would be what he's talking about here, right? So again, verse 14. Read that again.
This is Joshua chapter 6, verse 14, and it reads, "And the second day they compassed the city once and returned into the camp. So they did 6 days."
So the second day, which we just read here, is here. They can pass the city once, right? Because the instruction was to go around the city once for 6 days. So this would be this account here. So when it says, pick it up at verse 15.
Joshua chapter 6, verse 15, and it reads, "And it came to pass on the seventh day that they rose early about the dawning of the day and compassed the city after the same manner 7 times. Only on that day they compassed the city 7 times."
On the seventh day, they went around the city 7 times, right? Pick it up at verse 16.
Verse 16, "And it came to pass at the seventh time, when the priest blew with the trumpets, Joshua said unto the people, Shout, for Yahuah hath given you the city."
The Yahuah had given them the city. So when you break it down, we just went through Ezekiel 46, verse 1, and it said the 3 types of days on the calendar of the Most High is new moon day, being day 1. It is followed by 6 work days, right? 6 work days. Right here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then it said the other day was the Sabbath day, right? So right here in Jericho 6 shows the calendar of the Most High. They started marching around Jericho on New Moon Day, being the first day. He said, go around about the city once a day for 6 days. And on the seventh day, he said, shout, and the walls would fall down. But if he started on New Moon Day, this would be your 6 work days, your 6 days here, right? And the seventh day, he shouted. Now let's prove that. Go to Joshua 88, verse 14 through 18.
You mean Jasher?
Jasher 18. Jasher 88, brother.
This is the book of Jasher, chapter 88, verse 14, and it reads, "And it was in the second month, on the first day of the month, that Yahuah said to Joshua, Rise up, behold, I have given Jericho into thy hand, with all the people thereof. And all your fighting men shall go round the city once each day. Thus shall you do for 6 days."
So right here, he said it was on New Moon Day when he gave him that. He said you shall do this for 6 days. So your 6 days is right in this area here. That's the 6 days. So this is what he just read. Go ahead.
Verse 15, "And the priest shall blow upon trumpets, and when you shall hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall give a great shouting, that the walls of the city shall fall down. All the people shall go up, every man against his opponent." Verse 16, "And Joshua did so according to all that Yahuah had commanded him." Verse 17, "And on the seventh day they went round the city 7 times, and the priest blew upon trumpets."
So on the seventh day, they went around the city 7 times, and the priest blew the trumpet. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 18, "And at the seventh round, Joshua said to the people, Shout, for Yahuah has delivered the whole city into our hands."
So if the calendar of the Most High consists of New Moon Day, 6 work days, and the Sabbath day, right? So you would have to conclude that this right here would be 7 days, and that the biblical Sabbath would be the 8th day, which all Sabbaths in the scriptures are 8, 15, 22, and 29. And the first Sabbath of the month would be the first quarter moon. So the account of Jericho, the walls of Jericho, further proves the calendar of the Most High. Genesis 1:14. We just went through the scriptures and Jasher picked it up and made it plain. Like I said, any verse before verse 12 would have to be the first day, which is New Moon Day. And the scripture proves it. The scripture interprets itself. Verse 14 says the second day they can pass the city once. So when you look at the scriptures and you understand the three types of days on the calendar of the Most High, this account of the walls of Jericho further proves that the calendar of the Most High is Genesis 1:14, and there is no other calendar that you can follow to follow any feast days listed in Leviticus 23. And it's clearly throughout the entire Bible. But like I said, you have to understand what you're looking at, right? So we'll just show this real quick. Let me go back here. Like I said, there's three types of days on the calendar of the Most High, right? You have Moon Day, you have 6 work days, and you have your Sabbath. All Sabbaths are 8, 15, 22, and 29, and coincide with the moon phase. The first Sabbath would be the first quarter moon. The second Sabbath of the month is the 15th day. That's the full moon, followed by the third Sabbath of the month, which is the last quarter moon. And then the final Sabbath is the crescent on the opposite end. So the account of Jericho further proves the calendar of the Most High, right? So we just wanted to do a quick breakdown of Jericho, Joshua 6, rather, and just show that in there. We was going through and reading through, and I was looking at that earlier today. So I just want to do a quick video on that, and just like I said, there's no indictment on anybody. We kept the Saturday Sabbath for about a year when we first came into the truth, until the Most High revealed it to us what His true calendar is. And so, as always, we go back and reassess what you've been taught and what you've learned, and see what the scriptures actually say. Just like we just went through the scriptures, go back to Joshua chapter 6 and read it for yourself. Go into the Strong's Concordance on the word morning. Go into the Strong's Concordance on the word dawn and see what it says. Go into Jasher 88 and see how it says there that they started on New Moon Day. And like I said, the three types of days on the calendar of the Most High is in Ezekiel 46, verse 1. New Moon Day, followed by 6 work days and the Sabbath. You cannot have a biblical Sabbath without first having 6 work days, according to Exodus 20, verse 9 and 10. So we just wanted to do this quick video, just a quick breakdown on the walls of Jericho. I know everybody's familiar with the walls of Jericho, and some try to discredit the lunar Sabbath, saying that they went to war with the walls of Jericho on the Sabbath, being the 7th day. But we just went through the scripture and clearly showed that it is the 7th day numerically. But when you break it down as far as the 3 types of days on the calendar of the Most High, we see clearly that was the 6th day of the work week, and that the Sabbath is the first Sabbath of the month is numerically the 8th day, because your count must start from New Moon Day, being day 1 of every biblical month. So with that, we say Shalom.
Shalom.